So this is our projections. This is where we think things are going to end up at the end of the season. This is not a rankings and we're putting them where we think they fit right now just because of how we feel about them. That we'll let the national pundits rank people however they want to rank them.
Right.
That's great. That gives us something to measure by, I guess. So this is where we kind of see things heading. Ohio State, number 1 seed, defending national champions. What do we say every week?
Be the man, you got to beat the man.
Exactly. They're undefeated and they win impressively. So even though they haven't played anybody, they are kicking the crap out of the people they do play.
Yeah. So in another projection here, we got them beating Indiana, Big Ten championship. So they will go in as your number 1 overall seed.
Exactly. And then at number 2, I went with Texas A&M because they continue to win impressively. And you look at Indiana, they struggled a bit this past weekend. And if we're saying that Ohio State's probably going to win the Big Ten, then Texas A&M is probably going to win the SEC. So I would put them at number 2. Their best wins so far, Notre Dame and Missouri. Missouri not looking so great at this point, probably by the end of the year. So probably just be Notre Dame as we talk about these and more. But
well, they still got to play Texas too.
Yeah, they got to play Texas. Then we have Indiana at number 3. They kill unranked teams, but they struggle with ranked or talent-rich teams. Best win is really Oregon, and most likely to play Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. And like we said before, the committee isn't going to punish teams for the outcomes of these championship games. So you got to think if everything holds serve, Indiana loses that game, they're still fine. And then behind them, Alabama. Alabama by far has probably the best wins resume. I'm not going to say the best overall resume, but as far as best wins go, they got a win over Georgia, Vandy, Mizzou, and Tennessee.
Right.
They do have a very bad loss with FSU, and they do have some tricky games ahead with Oklahoma and Auburn, but they should be favored pretty high against those and should be able to take care of both of those teams.
Yeah. And this will be the spot, much like Texas last year. Losing the SEC championship game is not going to hurt you. They'll still get the bye. They'll still be ranked ahead of, the other schools that we have down there, I think.
Yeah. I just wonder, now you got me thinking though, like if Bama loses to Texas A&M in the SEC championship game, would they vault Georgia up to number 4?
It's a smaller chance. I think it would be more likely to happen if Texas A&M loses to Texas, and then Bama beats them in the SEC championship game, because then you would have a common opponent of Texas, and Georgia, assuming Georgia would have beaten Texas at that point, that would be more likely the case.
Yeah, that's a fun thing to think about. I don't think the committee is going to change the seeding after the championship games unless someone sneaks in who shouldn't have snuck in.
Yeah.
And then you got Georgia at number 5, which honestly is sitting in like a really good position, but really tough bracket moving forward if they get past the first round.
But all of them are. I mean, there's no easy path.
Yeah, it's not like last year.
Right. Because of because it's based on seedings, you're not getting Arizona State, in that second round. So.
Yep. But Georgia's got 2 really good wins against Tennessee and Ole Miss, and they have the best loss of any team right now, losing to Bama. Georgia does have some tricky games ahead with Texas and Georgia Tech. So we're projecting that Georgia will run the table and close out the season, end up at that number 5 spot, and not have to play in the SEC championship game.
Yeah. And then we've got them taking on South Florida, but this is really a toss-up. The G5 is a cluster.
Yeah.
I would have said it probably would have been San Diego State until this week when they inexcusably lost to Hawaii 38-7 after having only giving up 5 points a game all year. James Madison only has one loss. So now Tulane stepping up and knocking off Memphis this week and kind of knocked them out. North Texas actually only has one loss in conference, so they could be in there too. It's a jumbled mess, but South Florida has the best wins out of them, having a win over Florida, win over in a good game against Miami. So South Florida will probably win that conference if they get a chance. And then it's just a question of their resume against James Madison's, I think, at that point.
Yeah, and when I was looking at the schedules coming up, I think South Florida will beat Navy, and I think James Madison will lose to Washington State.
Interesting.
But who knows? That group of 5 is such a mess right now. That's why we have 4 teams there
Right.
in total. They're all right there in it.
Yep.
All right. Then at number 6, team we've been talking about a lot this year, Texas Tech. They have 2 great wins over teams from Utah, Utah and BYU.
Yeah.
And they have what I'm calling a not terrible loss against
Right.
Arizona State. Arizona State is a good team. So not a terrible loss there. They're going to be in, more than likely, Texas Tech will be in the Big 12 championship. Most likely going to win that game. They'll win either over BYU or Cincy.
Yeah. And then this is where it gets interesting, though. So, Burl, you've got them taking on Miami, and this
Okay.
is I don't necessarily agree with this one, but let's hear your reasons on this.
Okay, so we got to talk about 11 and 10.
Yeah.
to paint the full picture. So I have Duke at number 10 because I think they will win the ACC. It sounds crazy, but hear me out. So, so let me pull up these standings real quick.
Well, you got 5 schools that
Yeah.
have one loss in conference.
Yeah, so you got Tech, you got Virginia, you got Pitt, SMU, and Duke. All one loss. Georgia Tech has to play Pittsburgh. I think Pitt wins that game.
Okay.
So that's the first domino to fall.
And then we by our other pick, we assume that Tech also loses to Georgia here. So Tech ends up with 3 losses. They're out.
I think they're out with 2 losses.
I know, but I'm saying they are definitely out.
Yeah, you're definitely out with 3 losses, 100%. So then Virginia actually plays Duke this weekend, and Duke is favored. So I think Duke pulls that one out because Virginia has been trying to lose games all year. They finally lost last week, so they learned how to lose. So they're going to keep that going.
Their quarterback's hurt too now.
And the quarterback's hurt. So that knocks Virginia out of the runnings. So then it's just SMU, of all people. SMU doesn't really have a tough game on the schedule coming up. So the way this all shakes out, Tech loses to Pitt, Duke beats Virginia, and then Pitt ends up losing to Miami. And so by virtue of Duke winning the ACC, they go in at 10. ACC gets 2 teams in. They get Miami in because Miami has 2 really good wins, Notre Dame and South Florida. They have not terrible losses, Louisville and if SMU makes it to the ACC championship, that's not a terrible loss. Those were really close games,
Yeah.
by the way. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to
Yeah.
it.
I could see that happening. The only kicker I have here about Miami in at 11 is if BYU finishes off, they win their games out. They play Texas Tech again in the Big 12 championship. They lose to Texas Tech again. BYU would be 11-2, both their losses to Texas Tech. Miami's 10-2, didn't play in the conference championship game. And so I could see BYU as the Big 12 would be perceived as a stronger conference because you've got a good Utah school in there, well, that BYU beat. That BYU would get that other bid.
Yeah, but the committee is looking at strength of record this year now.
Right.
So
But Utah, if Utah finishes out, Utah finishes 10-2, and BYU is going to play Cincinnati this week, who's 9-1. So if they knock off a Cincinnati team with a very strong record, and they've got to win over Utah with a strong record, and both their losses are to Texas Tech, one's in a conference championship game, one was on the road. So your record looks pretty good. I could see them putting BYU in over Miami, a 2-loss Miami, because Miami's losses look worse. BYU's would only be to the team that was ranked 6th in the country.
I could see that, but I still think Miami, the committee would put Miami in over BYU.
Or neither of them gets in and they put in Vandy.
True.
I'm serious. Like neither of those schools, SEC gets a 5th school in.
That is possible, especially if Big Ten only gets 2.
Or if Big Ten gets 3 in this scenario. I could see SEC getting that 5th team in over Miami, who's Vanderbilt's losses to.
Bama.
Right. They lost to Bama, and then they lost last week.
Mm-hmm.
So Vanderbilt's very strong. So I absolutely could see they're only I could see Vanderbilt getting in.
They are on the bubble with BYU right there. So very, very plausible. And at number 7, we got Ole Miss.
That's going to be where they are. I
don't think they're going to be where
they are. They're in the playoff. They win this week. They beat South Carolina. I think they play South Carolina.
The rest of their season,
or it's Florida. Whoever they play this week, they win that game. They're done. They're in.
Yeah, they don't play any like really great teams.
They've got Mississippi State and they've got somebody else. So they're going to be in. They're going to sit at 7. They're going to host a playoff game. That's where they're going.
They'll be Duke.
Yeah. and then the 8-9. I think this is probably most likely the scenario. Now Oregon losing could shake things up, but I think Notre Dame is going to continue to move up. 8's a good spot for them hosting a playoff game. Oregon, I think that's where they sit now. I think that's kind of where they'll stay. They've got a test coming up against USC, but if they hold serve, which I think they will, then they're in.
But if they don't, does that mean the Big Ten only gets 2 teams in? I think so.
Maybe, unless it's USC who beats them and goes on. USC's played pretty well, or Michigan. Michigan's also interesting here because if Michigan's got 2 losses, but they play Ohio State at the end. If they get their 5th win in a row over Ohio State might still go to the conference championship game. But if Michigan is 10-2 with another win over Ohio State, you damn sure know they're going to make the playoff.
God, if Ohio State loses to Michigan this year, I think my in-laws are going to have a freak out.
Yeah. So, but that's it. So let us know what you think. What are your projected playoff teams, and how do you think it's going to shake out? And keep in mind that, once again, this is how we're projecting it to be at the end, not what you're going to see on Tuesday night out of ESPN.
Yeah, we let them do their rankings. We're trying to figure out what it's going to be at the end. That's why we're different. That's why you love us. That's why you love college football, and that's why you need to subscribe.
Yep. So I think that'll wrap us up for tonight, man.
That's all I can talk about.
Yeah.
I've
So we'll be
talked to, I've
back.
talked so much today. I can't talk anymore.
But anyway, if you love the show, please subscribe. It really helps us out. Please leave a comment too. We've seen an uptick in viewership lately, but we'd love to hear from you. It makes it fun. Um, but until next time, I'm Street.
I'm Burl.
Go dogs.